the newest and latest trends that she thinks she needs to have. Uh, she does have a savings account and she does contribute to her own savings account. So that's very good. Um, all of you that are with me today, drop in the chat how old your babies are. Again, my babies are 18 and 20. How old are your babies that you want to teach financial literacy skills? Okay, 17, 11, 5 and 2, very differently, right? 30 all the way to 6. And there could be some grandparents on the call too that want to teach their babies. None yet, but preparing. You can never prepare too early, right? Love that. Okay. Okay. Well, hopefully, no matter if they are 2, 5, 26, whatever their ages are, we will be able to give you something that you can apply today, starting today. So I want to tell you a very quick story about my 18-year-old. She was 4 at the time. So one thing my mother-in-law has done very well is she's always had Sunday family dinners, right? So on Sunday nights, my husband and his siblings and their children, we all get together and we have Sunday dinners with his mother. And I think that's very smart. I'm going to continue that with my children because even though my 20-year-old has moved out, he still is always there Sunday night family dinner. But when my kiddos were younger, we had to make an impulse trip to Hot Springs, Arkansas. They had changed the rules where it used to, if you were flying to Mexico, you could take your children's birth certificate, and then they changed it where you had to have a passport. So at the last minute, we had to run to Hot Springs, Arkansas to get my kiddos' passports. And again, my 18-year-old now, she was 4, we went. And so my husband's siblings were able to go, but my mother-in-law could not go. And so we sat down at the table to eat dinner. So we're all there minus my mother-in-law. And my 4-year-old says, "Who's paying for this?" Because she was so used to us all sitting around the table on Sunday night dinners with my mother-in-law, who typically pays for our Sunday night dinners, right? So she's like, "I don't understand. Who's going to pay for this?" And it just cracked me up because you don't ever think about how children think about money unless you hear them talk about it, right? And I think it's really important to include them in the conversations of like, yeah, who is paying for this? Turns out mom and dad have a job. I have a coworker that she tells her 2-year-old, "Mom has a job. I go to work to buy our house, to buy your toys, to buy your clothes." So we need to be having these conversations with our children, right? No matter how old they are, if they're 2. And even recently, my 20-year-old and 18-year-old were asking, how much money do you, mom and dad, actually make? They wanted to start knowing specifics. So you have to have those conversations at some point. Some people feel more comfortable having those conversations than others. But no matter what, when we're teaching financial literacy, we have to relate it in their terms, whether, again, they're 2 or 26. We have to find teachable moments and we have to put it into practice. So what are some things that we can do? First of all, they need to understand the difference between needs and wants. When they're little, this is something that they typically learn in like first grade, right? It gets a little cloudy when you start talking about, let's say, clothing, right? Clothing you learn is something you need to survive. We have to have clothing to cover our body. In the winter, we have to have clothing to keep us warm. That is something we need. But as they get older, they may start wanting name brand clothing or extra items that they don't necessarily need. They maybe already have a good pair of tennis shoes, but now they want these other pair of shoes because their peers have them. So it quickly can become a want. So having that conversation, what we need to survive versus what we would like to have, and how those are different. So if you have little kiddos, maybe you could do a needs and wants search around the house, where first you tell them what the difference is between a need and a want, and then maybe set a timer and to have them go and bring you needs. So you could say like, You have 2 minutes to bring me as many needs as you can find, or 2 minutes to bring me as many wants as you can find. And just kind of see what their concept of how they're understanding that concept, right? They may bring you something that you consider a need, that they're considering it a want, or vice versa. And when they get older, maybe doing it a little bit different. This is an activity we actually do with our first year students here at OU. We put this list up here, and then they tell us, is it a need or a want? And there are things that are super easy that to identify, like sweet treats, going to Seven Brew, going to Starbucks. Obviously, that is a want. But something like clothing, again, we talk about how that is on the basic level a need, but how does that look like, or can that look like a want, and what does that look like? Having the latest name brands is something that's very important to a lot of people in college, and they're trying to keep up with their peers and maybe overspending while they're in college. And that starts typically, at junior high age, middle school age. And so just having those conversations of not trying to keep up with other people and getting yourself into debt, trying to impress other people. Entertainment, we classify that as a want. Pet expenses, I like this conversation with kids because if you're deciding if you're going to get the pet, obviously that first decision, that is a want, right? Should we buy this puppy? Should we buy this kitten? Should we buy this hamster? Whatever it is, that is a want. Once you buy it, it is your obligation to take care of it, which is why we put it in the need category at that point. But then we also talk about how you can walk into, PetSmart and easily overspend on things like a dog sweater or a new dog toy, something like that. Car maintenance, gym membership, rent, phone bill, subscriptions. We just kind of go through the list. We talk about how you can easily overspend on groceries. And I have an activity for the grocery store here in a little bit. Haircut. I always say you could go either way because some people can do their own hair and some people cannot. It is being recorded, and they typically send out the recording and a copy of this PowerPoint to everyone who is in attendance. So you should get an email of this recording. So yeah, haircut, I could go either way on that. I always tell the students when my kiddos were little, when they were 2 and 4, my husband lost his job. And when he lost his job, you learn very quickly what a true need is and what a true want is. And at that point, I started cutting my husband and son's hair, but I still went to the hair salon to get my hair cut. So, excuse me, I'm going to get some water. I don't know if any of you have been fighting colds. Eating out, gasoline, unless you have a 16-year-old. If any of you have 16-year-olds, they like to drive around, right? Okay. Also learning how to manage a finite amount of money. So you could do this with cookies. You could even do it with your Halloween candy, okay? You have a set amount of cookies or a set amount of... I'm so sorry, guys. I'm going to put in a cough drop and see if that'll help me. Okay. Let's say you have a set amount of cookies. And so you tell your young one, okay, these cookies have to last us all week. How many cookies can we have each day so that we don't run out of cookies? And kind of explain how money is very similar to that. We have a set amount of money and it has to last us for a certain period of time. So again, you have Halloween candy probably at your disposal. You can say, okay, we have X amount of candy. How much are we allowed to have every day to make it last for a certain period of time? Or maybe you just want to throw away the candy and make them forget about it. So we also talk about the money pizza with kids and talk about how you have, again, a set amount, right? And you have to make this last. And so for maybe teenagers, They might have some bills that they are paying for on their own. Maybe they're paying for their own car insurance or their car gas or their phone bill, something that they're responsible for. But they also have their money that they have for food, savings, and then just their fun money. And we ask them, okay, if this is your set amount of money, you get paid, let's say, every 2 weeks, and you spent all your fun money on week one, but then now your friends want to go to a haunted house. What do? You've already spent your fun money, right? Sometimes it's a thing where, okay, we have to make a choice. We have to choose which fun thing that we want to do. Or it's a thing, okay, maybe I'm going to eat out less this week so that I can pay for the haunted house. Maybe I'm going to come home for lunch and try to make my money last longer. So we carry this conversation over with college students as well. We talk about the money pizza, and this is in your everyday life as well, right? You have a certain amount of money. Have you ever heard of the 50-30-20 rule, where 50% of your income goes towards needs, 30% towards wants, saving, investing 20%? You have a set amount, right? And so you have to try to use within what you have. So we teach the same thing it's the same concept. This isn't the adult version right here, the 50-30-20 rule, whereas that's just the kid version, right? Because their high school or junior high budgets are very different than an adult budget. But it's the same concept. You have a certain amount. How do you make it last, right? So a teachable moment might be like taking them to a shopping trip. So, for example, my grocery budget for the week for my family of 4 is $200. That includes meals, snacks, breakfast, lunch, drinks, toiletries, cleaning products, everything, right? And so that may be too much for your children, depending on how old they are. It may be a thing where you say, okay, we have $15. Let's go in and you buy the ingredients for us to make a meal for $15. And so they could do the research ahead of time online, right? What meal do they want to make? What ingredients will they need? And then trying to buy the ingredients within that budget that you give them. Because you don't want to make it too overwhelming, right? For me, my $200 is typically 4 meals. So while my 20-year-old, 18-year-old could probably handle that concept, your 10-year-old would not be able to probably do that many meals, but they could definitely handle 1 meal. You could also do this with like back to school clothes shopping. You may say, okay, you have this set amount of money. We're back to school clothes. Yeah, it may be enough to buy 1 pair of shoes that you want, or it may be enough to buy cheaper shoes and maybe some jeans and shirts. Another way you could do this is gifts for your kids' friends. You could say, okay, I have $25 for your friend's gift. You get to pick what we spend that $25 on. Just getting them involved in the decision-making process. We want students or children to have choices. If they have choices, they feel like they have more control. And choosing can be hard, for sure. It is hard, but it's they need to understand, because money is limited, I have to choose or prioritize what's most important to me. I think my daughter has done a good job of figuring out that food is not a good place to waste your money. She was out of town this weekend for an event for student council, and I gave her $50 for food for 4 days because not all of them, some meals were covered. And so they went out to eat at a restaurant last night. And so she chose to get a kid's meal to spend less money. She was trying to save money. And then they added a $3 charge because she wasn't a kid and she ordered a kid's meal. She was so upset. But she's learning to make choices. Where do you want to spend your money? What is most important to you, right? So here's an activity. And when they send out the email with this PowerPoint in this video, I'm going to include a PDF of this, okay? So what you do is you give your kid 16 M&Ms and you say, okay, make your choices. Do you want to live in an apartment with a roommate, or do you want to live in a house with a roommate, which costs more? And so if they want to live in the apartment, that's going to cost them 5 M&Ms. Where if they want to live with a roommate in a house, that's 7 M&Ms. So they go through and they make their choices. They don't have enough M&Ms to do all of choice B for every option, right? They have to do some of the cheaper options, but they get a choice in the matter. So that's one activity that you could do with them. Another one is you can tell them, okay, you're going on a cruise. $800 is your budget. What do you want to do with the $800? Okay, first of all, with the room, do you want to spend 500 of it on the ocean view room? Or are you okay with spending 400 on an inside view room where you don't have a balcony or a view of the outside? And then they get to choose how they want to spend their $800. Excuse me, but they do not have enough money to buy it all, to spend it all. So again, making them have choices. Or you could do a real life vacation. My sister-in-law, my brother-in-law did this with my 10-year-old nephew. He got to choose their vacation. He got to plan it. They gave him a budget, and he got to decide where to go and what they were doing with their money. Obviously, if you don't have the money to go on a vacation, that might not be as fun. Maybe it's still exciting for a child, even knowing that they're not actually going on the vacation, just to plan it. Okay, concept number 4, managing money. Kind of taking everything that we've already talked about and applying it, right? Children have to have a way to earn money in order to manage their money, right? So whether it's through a job or allowance. Now, there's a lot of different opinions about allowance and chores. Some people feel strongly that chores is part of being a part of the family, which I understand that. I get that. So what I would suggest, if that is your mindset, is saying, okay, these chores, however many, is just your part of being part of the family. But these extra chores is how you earn your allowance. I had a friend that chores was part of being part of the family. She would not pay her child for chores, but she paid her child to read books. So that was her way to allow her child to earn money. However you decide to do it is completely up to you. But they have to have a way to earn money to manage money. Because if they're not earning money, then they're not actually managing it, other than maybe getting money for birthdays or gifts, right? If you're doing allowances, be consistent and also allow them to be in control. It might be hard to relinquish control. You might not agree with what they're doing with their money, but you have to give them space to make mistakes and learn from managing their money. Start with setting expectations. How much money you're going to give them? What are the rules? Again, is this for reading books? Is this for extra chores? Is this just for a certain amount of chores? And do what you can to incentivize saving, right? We want to teach them not to spend everything that they are making. Help them to make a plan. How much are they getting for allowance? How many weeks would they have to save up for something special that they're wanting, that they're saving up for? And what extra chores can they do to save even more if that's a possibility? My 10-year-old nephew, he wanted to start earning money this summer. So we hired him to mow our front and backyard. It's a small lot. It's nothing big. So we paid him, I think my husband paid him $10 every time he came over, which is not very much, but also he didn't do a great job because he's 10. He's just learning. But he's learning on our yard so that he can get better at that skill. So eventually he can charge people when he gets good at it, right? And I'm assuming next summer, if we do it again, we'll pay him more, right? Because he'll be more experienced. And so it was an opportunity for him to earn money. And he was saving up for something special. And so help them do the math of how many weeks are they going to save up? What can they do to reach whatever financial goal they have? With children, they're not going to do the 50-30-20 rule. That's for adults, right? Instead, they're going to do something like this, where they spend, save, and share their money. Very common percentage of that is very common for children is save 30%, spend 60%, and share or gift 10%, right? Maybe you've heard of this concept. If you go to MidFirst Bank and you open up your child the Kids iSave account, which I'm going to drop the link to that in the chat right now. If you go open them up a kids savings account, they get this book that teaches them about saving, spending, and sharing. I have it right here. But with that iSave savings account, they get interest, but they also that's compounded monthly, but they also can earn up to $25 a year of extra money added to it if you're contributing at least $50 every month. So this is how the iSave savings account is what we opened for our kiddos when they were 2 and 4. And once we opened that up for them, when they started getting money for like birthdays and Christmas, we had them contribute to their savings account. When my children got jobs, they would contribute to their savings account. And then when we first opened it, we didn't have a lot of extra money. So it was literally $10 per paycheck per child. And then we realized about the $25. So then we increased it to $50 every month per child so that we could get that $25 a year. And as that money would build up, we would take it and we would put it in a CD, certificate of deposit, because those were earning higher interest rates than the iSave savings account. And so we'd keep contributing to their iSave account each month, but then we would have their CDs and then we would take that money and add it to that money and get a bigger CD. That's literally how we saved up for their cars, between what they contributed and what we consistently contributed. But it literally started with $10 a paycheck per child. So I'm going to talk about bank accounts here in a little bit, but I wanted to tell you about this because you could read this to your child about saving, spending, and sharing. And there's even little labels that you could cut out that you can put onto jars to teach them or show them as you're putting money into each jar where that money is going. Now you can print fake money to put in the jars, or you can do real money, right? There's also apps out there that allow you to keep track of your child's allowance and chores, and you can add money to it. One of our financial educators, her children are like around like 13 and 10. She uses this app called Chores and Allowance Bot. And it just is a tracker of keeping track of their chores and how much money she owes them for those chores. And it's a free app. But again, you could do real money. You could do real jars so that they can physically see it. As children like concrete examples, concrete things that they can touch and see. So you may just want to do it that way instead of doing an app. As they get older, they don't necessarily need that. You could do money where they just have their money in a bank account, and then they have a budget using like a budgeting app, or a tracking app is what it is. You tracking your expenses just like adults do. So for my children, at this point, they just have their regular checking and savings accounts, and I can transfer money into their accounts if I need to. And I can take money out if I need to. Mom, will you pay for this? I'll pay you back. Yeah, okay. So obviously children learn by doing. Help them to open up an account or have a way to manage their money, whether it's through an app, a real bank account, it's actual cash, it's printed cash, whatever you can do. It develops responsibility. It shows that you trust them. It might be painful. They might make mistakes. I don't know about you, but my dad wouldn't allow me to open up a bank account until I turned 18 because he didn't trust me to be connected to him through the bank. He was so afraid I was going to make a mistake. But at some point, we have to give them the opportunity to make those mistakes and learn from those mistakes, right? Okay. So concept 5, we have 2 more concepts. Concept 5 is about banks and what they do. It's important to teach children what banks do. Obviously, teaching them about checking accounts, savings accounts. But one of the most important things to do is to teach them about interest and how it works. Obviously, they don't understand compound interest, and that if they put $100 into their savings account at a 5% rate of return, compounded monthly, in a year, they would have $105. And that may mean nothing to them, right? But after 10 years, they would have $165. And they may go, oh, okay, so I can make $65 by just leaving my money in there and not even adding to it. Yes, through compound interest. And showing them that the more money you have in the bank, the more it works in your favor. In this example, if you put $1,000 in a savings account that's got a 5% rate of return compounding monthly, in a year, instead of only $5, now we're looking at $51. So just teaching them the concept of compound interest. There's a lot of adults that don't really understand that. Taking them to the bank is a great way to get them involved. Again, if you take them into MidFirst to open up their savings account, they get this book. And then they also get access to an iSave newsletter, which has activities for kids to do. But it's good for them to go in and see what it looks like. So it's, again, making it concrete right in front of them where they can see it. So if you say, I got to go to the bank, take them to the bank so that they can see what that means and what that looks like. And teaching them about checking accounts, savings accounts, and again, CDs. The way I explain CDs to students is that they're like a savings account, but your money's locked in for a period of time and you can't touch your money for that period of time. So if it's a 2-year CD, you cannot touch your money for 2 years. But you earn interest on it just like a savings account. Sometimes those rate of returns or interest rates can be higher than just a regular savings account. Obviously elementary kids don't need to know how to write a check or make a deposit, but by high school, they need to understand that concept and know how to do that. This is a big thing. There's a lot of kids that don't understand the difference between a credit card, a debit card, and a gift card. So being able to explain that, right? Gift card is money that you don't have it's given to you, right? It's literally a gift. A debit card is money you have. It's your money in your account. And a credit card is money you're borrowing and you have to repay it. They think of it all as the same thing because they're just all on a card. The last concept is number 6, setting college expectations. And if you joined me last time when I was talking about marriage and money, I talk a lot about having open conversations. If your child is going to be responsible for paying for their own college, they need to know that, right? And they need to be aware of that ahead of time. And education is a need. You're more likely to make over $1 million in your lifetime with a college degree than without. But where you go to college is a want. You are not entitled to start at a D1 college or go to a private college or to go to out-of-state college. There are much cheaper options that you can consider that would save you a lot of money. This kind of shows the difference in prices. Here at OU, it costs a non-resident about $15,000 a year more in non-resident tuition. And private schools, depending on which private school, some of them are as expensive as OU, and they're much smaller of a school, or they're way more expensive than OU. It just depends on the private school. So students can start off like at a community college. They can start off at a junior college. They don't have to start off at a D1 college. One thing I'd love for students to understand is that they need to think of their education as an investment. You're more likely to make over $1 million in your lifetime with a college degree than without, but not all degrees are guaranteed money, okay? You do not want to spend $140,000 on a private college tuition or let's say a bachelor's in education, right, to be a teacher, where you're going to start off making less than $40,000 a year. The rule of thumb when it comes to spending money on your college degree is that how much you borrow in student loans should not exceed your first year starting salary. So if you're expected to make over or around $30,000 with your college degree right out of college, then you would not want to borrow more than $30,000, right? And there are different exceptions. Like there are some schools, they are known for that program. Like OU, if you're wanting to study meteorology, we are the place to go, right? Hands down, we're the place to go if you want to study meteorology. But it doesn't make sense for someone to borrow $140,000 in student loans for an education degree when they could get an education degree in their home state. We just want people to make smart financial choices. And it starts with their guidance at home. Thanks, Christy. They need to do the research. What are they wanting to study, right? What is the average salary? What is the starting salary versus the average salary? And look at your state, the state that you're interested in, right? Teaching the cost of living adjustments. What is the job market? What training is required? And right now, the two things that I've been telling my kids, my own personal kids, is what degree is still going to be needed when AI has fully taken over. Okay. Because there are certain jobs that they're saying that won't be needed with AI. Again, having them do that research of what these different degrees will pay. And again, have them look at the state they plan on living in. Okay, guys, I have lots of resources for you. Money Moments is MidFirst Bank's money financial education website. So we have a lot of resources on there. It's not just resources for parents, but it's also for teachers. So we have a activity and a lesson for almost any financial literacy concept you can think of. Credit, identity theft, fraud, budgeting, like anything that you can think of, it's on that Money Moments website. And some of those resources are on that iSave link that I dropped in the chat as well. On our YouTube channel, we have a lot of videos. I mean, we have some videos that were made for kids, some for middle school, high school, college, adult. So check out our our YouTube channel. NGPF is a nonprofit financial education resource. Some books, Mimi's Money Book Series, Cloverleaf Books, Money Basics, Smart Money Skills for parents of teens. So just some books that we recommend. And then, of course, Max. And then there's my email address. So if you have any questions, I want to be a resource for you as well. Please reach out to me. And I'm happy to try to help you with any questions that you may have. But before we end the call today, do any of you have any questions for me that you want to ask now? You can unmute yourself if you want to ask it. Or you can type your question if you want. I would just like to apologize for all my coughing. I know that was probably really annoying to listen through. So sorry. We don't have any questions? Okay, well then someone give me a takeaway. What did you learn today?
I got a takeaway probably in this digital online banking to be intentional about going to the brick and mortar and taking the kids along. Let them see the money go in and go out, have a conversation with the teller. And it's easy not to do with digital banking. That was one of my big takeaways, especially for a developing mind that needs concrete examples.
I love that. That's great. Thank you, Timothy, for sharing. Okay, never too early to start. That's right. I am going to try a couple of these activities with my kids. Good. Looking forward to meeting my niece where she is and talking about her current concept of money. Yes, yeah, exactly. I talk to my child about our monthly bills frequently, and he is aware of how much all his activities cost. Good. Yeah. And sometimes I'm concerned that I talk too much about money, that I'm accidentally putting on stress for my kids, but I want them to be very well aware. The $10 paycheck, saving per paycheck or per child. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It starts somewhere. You got to start somewhere. Money Mike on the call. Education is a need. Where you go is a want. Love that. Just the overall message that money doesn't need to be a taboo topic. Absolutely. That's how we learn, right? The recommendation of letting them take on responsibility, showing them trust, which is probably lets them be more comfortable to come to you with mistakes or questions about money. Fantastic. Okay, guys, as always, you are fantastic. I hope you have a great day. Please email me if you have any questions and stay away from me so you don't get sick. Bye, guys.